The top 10 spiritual speakers on YouTube. In my humble opinion, these 10 individuals are among the greatest speakers of life and spirituality on YouTube. Listening to each of them has really just been so tremendously helpful on my own journey. So making this video is more of an attempt to share that wisdom rather than to rank them in any particular order. But either way, I've included a brief clip of each teacher so you can kind of draw your own conclusions. And without further ado, the top 10 spiritual teachers on YouTube.
Buddha is reported to have said that a meditator loses all his questions. A moment comes when there are no questions left. And that is the moment when you attain to wisdom. Not to answers, but to wisdom. Wisdom is not an answer. It is unfolding of your consciousness. Not that you come to know something, but you start experiencing life in its totality.
So now, can you allow your mind to be quiet? Isn't it difficult? Because the mind seems to be like a monkey, jumping up and down and jabbering all the time. Once you've learned to think, you can't stop. And an enormous number of people devote their lives to keeping their minds busy and feel extremely uncomfortable with silence. When you're alone, nobody's saying anything, there's nothing to do. There's this worry, this lack of distraction. I'm left alone with myself, and I want to get away from myself. I'm always wanting to get away from myself. That's why I go to the movies, that's why I read mystery stories, that's why I go after to girls or anything that you do, or get drunk or whatever. I don't want to be with myself. I feel queer. So, well, why do you want to run away from yourself? What's so bad about it? Why do you want to forget this? Why do you want to become yourself? Because you are addicted to thoughts. This is a drug, a real dangerous one. Compulsive thinking, going on and on and on and on and on all the time. It's a habit. So there's a difficulty about stopping that activity. And you really have to stop it if you want to be sane.
I only have one thing to show you or teach you. It's not teaching. Teaching would mean giving knowledge to your mind. So the only real reason is to find the spaciousness within who you are, beyond the person. What could be more important than that? Just one conscious breath brings some space, or helps you realize some space inside you. Your attention follows the breath as it moves into the body and out. And while you're following the breath with your attention in and out, you become spacious.
Don't worry about anything at all. Don't worry about anything at all. You remember this thing, that you are not here by accident, no? Even in this form. This is just a costume for a while you have to wear. But the one who is behind the costume, this one is eternal. You must know this thing. If you know this and trust this, you don't have to worry about anything. You will not panic or act so prematurely. And you will allow yourself just to not just always react, but just to keep quiet. And you find your mind comes nicely again into your heart, and then you begin to see in your natural state, from your natural state. And I want to say that this world is so full of love. And your heart, your being is so full of love, full of peace. You don't have to go to someplace else to find peace. You don't have to go to India to find peace. You don't have to go to Himalaya to find peace. You don't have to go to the Caribbean to find peace or happiness, because it's right where you are.
See, up until you see beyond it, everything is dominated by by oneself, is it not? I want to be awakened, I want to be enlightened, I want to have some spiritual revelation, which is really no different than I want an ice cream cone. I want to be loved. I want to be agreed with. I want to be disagreed with. I like or I don't like. Do you see how the fiction of self always keeps itself in the center of one's consciousness? Yeah? And spiritual awakening is seen through the fiction of that actually there isn't actually a self in the center of one's consciousness.
The fear is simply because you're not living with life, you're living in your mind. Your fear is always about what's going to happen next. That means your fear is always about that which does not exist. If your fear is about the non-existent, your fear is 100% imaginary. If you're suffering the non-existential, we call that insanity. So, people may be in just socially accepted levels of insanity, but if you're afraid or if you're suffering anything which does not exist, it amounts to insanity, isn't it?
To find out who you are, you have to inquire. You are the story of mankind, which is really a very, if you really see that, it gives you tremendous vitality, energy, beauty, love. Because it is no longer a small entity struggling in the corner of the earth. You're part of this whole humanity. It has a tremendous responsibility, vitality, beauty, love. But most of us won't see this. But whereas we are most of us concerned with ourselves, with our particular little problem, particular little sorrow and so on. And to step out of that narrow circle seems almost impossible. Because we are so conditioned, so programmed like the computers, that we cannot learn something new. The computer can, but we can't.
And yet it's what all spiritual roads lead to. It leads to what's here. And when we get deep enough in the spiritual journey, we realize that the journey itself is taking us away from here. So at a certain point, the depths of the spiritual journey actually destroys the journey itself. Because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere else to be.
All forms of suffering basically spring from our inability to allow things. Seemingly, it springs from our inability to accept things the way they are. There is no struggle, there is no suffering if there's no argument. If I do not argue with whatever is here right now, whatever the situation is right now, then I have nothing to fear, I have no suffering. There is no, if I want what's here right now, if I'm okay with that completely, then suffering can't exist, can it? But if I undertake the act of allowing, then that's just another way of denying that the moment just before I started to allow it, that it wasn't perfectly fine. So the non-allowance of the situation should also be perfect, if everything is perfect. If life is however it is, then even the practice of allowance is kind of a tricky business, because it's in itself it's a denial of perfection. So then, what to do, right? I have a suggestion. That is, instead of trying to become allowance, instead of trying to become somebody who accepts everything, notice how your very nature itself is allowance already. So don't try to create allowance. Instead, see that something is already allowing everything, or else it wouldn't exist.
In other words, enlightenment is a fancy name for the most simple, the most ordinary, the most well-known experience there is, and all 7 billion of us know it. However, because it cannot be found by the mind, in most cases it is deemed missing. And as a result of that, the peace and the happiness that are inherent in it are also considered missing. And hence the imaginary self goes off into the world in search for the missing peace and happiness. And as we all know, it doesn't live there. Where does it live? In the simple knowing of our own being. Its knowing of itself. That is awareness's awareness of awareness. And it is your innermost experience at all times. It's not a new experience. It's not something that has been lost and has to be found. At worst, we could say it has been overlooked.
Ultimately, all of these teachers are trying to put into words the same exact essential insights, but they all have very different styles of doing so. Some may be more helpful to you than others. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was helpful to you.